You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Mob Wives After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Mob Wives After Show.
Hello, everybody, Mob Wives fans. You're tuning in here to the AFTERBUZZ After Show for Mob Wives New Blood, Season 4, Episode 10, Life Sentences. So I am your host, Erika Garcia Rojas, and I am joined here by my two lovely co-hosts.
I'm Charlotte Broadbent. What's up, everyone?
Hi, I'm Roxy Striar. Good to be back.
And we're here chatting about your favorite housewives, the Mob Wives. So this week, we see a little bit about Alicia's story. We see a lot of Renee and Natalie. So just starting off, I'll talk a little bit about Alicia. And we'll talk about that first and her storyline. So right at the top of the episode, we see that she's awaiting the sentencing for her husband, Eddie, to see what happens, see if the judge accepts the plea bill.
Yeah, he's trying to have a plea bargain, which is supposed to give him 1.5 to 2 years, as opposed to the 5 to 10 years, which they were predicting him getting.
Yes.
So this kind of came at me like I don't know how long they were planning on doing this for. We definitely didn't think that this was going to happen. I thought he was going to be there a minimum of 5 years. So this seems like best case scenario. Happy for her, absolutely. Happy for anybody with children who need their father there.
Yeah.
But I'm not invested in him that much because, as you just said, this is new blood, and she is new blood. We've never met him. We're not even allowed to see photographs of him. So, happy for him, yeah. But is it the biggest moment of the episode? Oh my God, I care so much. Not really.
And I think what it's more setting us up as viewers is the fact that now that his situation is kind of resolved, next they're going to be focusing on Alicia, and that's ultimately more about what we'll care about. And obviously, we're not going to see that resolved during the season because it's still not resolved now. But I think it's now kind of setting it up. And we saw it at the end of the episode where she was saying, now I'm scared. Like, I'm kind of numb to the whole thing. This thing with Eddie got resolved, and now I'm next.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, people can wait for years for sentencing. He could be out of jail by the time she gets sentenced, you know? So that it's insane to think about how long these things take. Sometimes they do stuff on purpose and they push things back, and sometimes paperwork gets lost, and sometimes they're just trying to make you nervous. I think that a lot of this has to do with scaring her straight. I definitely think that they're looking at her as somebody who isn't a really dangerous threat to society, but they want to slap her on the wrist and say, look what you did.
Well, and they want to make an example of her also.
Right, and make exactly, slap her on the wrist, make an example of her, etc. They definitely are trying to say, you can't get away with this like you thought you'd be able to. Yeah. And I do have to say, more and more every week, I'm starting to realize that I think she's not exactly who she makes herself out to be on TV.
And what do you mean by that?
I just think she comes across like, I knew nothing, I'm so innocent, Renee is yelling at me, oh my God, I've never been in this position. People from where I come from, they don't swear, I don't believe you anymore.
Well, she's obviously been very, in my opinion, in watching the show, she's been very coached, because everything she does say and do obviously is recorded, and this is a very sensitive time. So she would be, in my opinion, a fool not to have full coaching from lawyers and everything as to how to present herself. This is an opportunity in a way for her to present herself as an innocent person.
But she's really not doing that at all. I mean, to be part of a show that's about the mob culture, and she's trying to say that she had no idea, but now you're kind of in a group with these people that know, they don't agree with what their husbands do, but they know what they've done. And
right between that and going to Vegas.
Exactly, I don't think she's helping a situation at all. But I do really feel for her that, I mean, it sucks that she's been put in a situation, whether she knew or not, where her husband's got the sentencing, he knows what's happening, she's having to pick up the pieces of her family, but now it's the situation where she said she's in depression because she doesn't know what her life holds and
Her fate.
exactly, and if she's going to be able to look after her kids. I mean, she didn't do anything wrong, and I don't think she did. I don't think she knew.
Really, I definitely think she knew more than she's letting on. But I will say, I feel very much so like she's the roller coaster of the season. I'm going back and forth on my feelings for her. I'm not sitting here saying I really just hate this character. I don't hate her. And in that moment when she is talking to Natalie and she's saying I am depressed, I think
Feel
that
for
that's
her.
very honest and true. I think she seriously feels like crap has hit the fan,
Yeah.
and now it's all falling, and she has no idea where it's going to fall. I really do feel for her. And I think about our day-to-day lives, the little things that make us depressed all of the time. And this is so huge that I don't think she's putting on an act for camera about this. And I do wish the best for her, as I do for all the women on the show.
And Natalie said that she could not hear from Alicia for days because she's just locked in a room.
Right.
I mean, that feeling of, I can't even imagine not knowing. I mean, it's like being on death row. I mean, that that I'm kind of like that, but you know what's going to happen. It's the waiting game.
It's different though because you don't know what's going to happen. You know,
Well, yeah.
like you know something's going to
something's
happen,
gonna happen.
but you don't really know what.
What.
It's almost more like when you see a bunch of cop cars ahead, you know, and you're driving by and you're like, I know that something's wrong, but like, what is it? How bad is it?
Or you're waiting for a medical diagnosis.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
you're waiting for test results. or
Exactly.
something.
Yeah.
Let's just play the analogy game.
That's
all
it,
day.
yeah.
Better
Let's just do
analogy than being on death row.
But I actually disagree
kept
with
walking
you,
up.
Charlotte. Like, I do think that her being on the show gives others an opportunity to view her not so much as the mob wife. I think prior to her being on the show, she probably had not a good reputation and more reputation as this gangster wife type of a person. And I think being on the show clears that a little bit.
Well, see, that makes me
And
question.
she's able to
then.
control a little bit her how she's being perceived.
Yeah.
Because she isn't, although was in Vegas, she really hasn't done or acted in any way that's could be perceived as being a troublemaker or a sneaky person. Like, she's not really directly involved in a lot of the drama, except for a little bit between her and Renee, but you don't see her fighting and doing some of these physical altercations that you see the other women doing.
But if you're trying to clear up a reputation of being a gangster and being known for something bad, then you know kind of the lifestyle that you're living, that your husband's living. Isn't it? Or because she's saying that she didn't know what he was doing. She didn't know anything about his mob lifestyle. Well, if she's got a bad reputation, surely there's some link.
Well, as I'm saying, she has a bad reputation because she's herself is linked to her husband and everything that's going on. But maybe that's not, maybe she's trying to be on the show to show that that's not really who she is.
Yeah, I'm somewhere in between the two of you guys right now. I'm not saying that it's great for her reputation, but I'm not saying it's horrible. I think that what is interesting to point out, though, is that she had a bad reputation. It seems to me, from what Renee is saying, she had a bad reputation amongst the mob crew, which is weird because it's not like she was this badass gangster mob wife that everybody knew. It seemed like everybody kind of thought she was the outsider, the bitch, the person who didn't fit in.
The uppity kind of person who wasn't part of the lifestyle that came in to,
Right. And on top of that, the other thing about then Vegas was that she was in the newspaper for, they assume, taking money, hiding money, and whatnot. There's no way anybody would have printed an article about her if she wasn't going to be on the show, because who gives a rat's ass about her, So just drawing attention.
Well, it sounds like she was in the tabloids, though. In the local newspapers, it sounded like from what we saw that she was. Maybe not national news, but...
Yeah, so maybe small time, but not a big deal.
Yeah.
So... on one hand, she's drawing attention to herself and putting enough money on herself that she's like, listen, if all this attention's here, I'm going to make people fall in love with me and nobody's going to want to hurt me because I'm going to be America's sweetheart. I'm that girl on Mob Wives that everybody would be friends with, that they can relate to, that is sweet. And that's all fine and good if that was actually what's happening. But unfortunately, I don't think that's what's happening. I think that some people are reading through her. And I don't know. I don't know whether she knew or not the whole deal. I doubt she knew everything because
I think she knew some of it,
but I
though.
do think she
yeah,
knew
and
some of it.
We all feel the same way, yeah.
Yeah.
And had I just read an article about her one day in the paper, would I have thought she knew some of it? Maybe not as much, but I'm seeing her and how she interacts and how smart she is, how much she gets it, and I'm like, honey, like you're not putting it past me. You're not some dumb girl who closes her eyes. I know your type, and I know that you are very intelligent. So I think that even though she might have gone on the show to help her cause, I don't know if that's what it's actually doing.
Yeah, well.
And going back to when you said that you think that she seems very scripted. Like we were saying,
We were talking about it
in
while
the
we were watching,
confessionals.
yeah.
It looks like she's reading a teleprompter.
Yeah.
It looks like she's reading. Her voice is so much different in the confessionals than it is. She emphasizes different
She sounds
words and she
rehearsed.
goes down and on the end of her sentences. It sounds like she's reading.
Here's what I'll say about that, though, because I don't know if you guys remember, I was filming a show that was supposed to be on VH1,
Yeah.
and a reality show, and when we were filming for it, they would ask you a question, and you would answer, and if something happened, they would say, wait, say that one more time, but would you mind adding this part to it? You know what I mean? Some of these other women have more practice making it sound candid. She has less practice, so it's... Yes, part of it could definitely be that everything is very calculated and she's playing it out, but also it's the fact that, no, this is not scripted television, but they can ask you to say certain things and you can say no, or you can just say them, or you've said something and the audio got messed up, so they ask you to say it again, or you yawned in the middle of it, so they ask you to say it 3 times, or all of a sudden the lighting changes, so 4 or 5 times later, you know, it sounds like she's reading off a goddamn teleprompter. So we
That's a
don't know
good point.
exactly why, but I do know from experience that I've been there, and sometimes I'm watching myself, I'm like, wait, that couldn't even be me saying that. It doesn't even sound like something that came up in my mind, you know? So I'm not sure what the reason is, but that could be one of them.
That is true, but I don't know. To me, it just seems every single one.
Yeah,
It's like that.
I
But I
agree
do.
too. It does seem scripted.
It does. I do
but
agree
that's,
with you.
That's a good point. All
It
right.
does.
We've I think we talked about that ad nauseum. So let's move on from Alicia. And then also at the start of the episode, we see Renee and Natalie have their sit down, which was kind of pumped up the last episode, even like 2 episodes, I think. They have their sit down and trying to clear the air and apologize, and it just seems like that went completely awry, the whole dinner.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help it. I'm liking Natalie. I don't know what it is. She says, it's the lion's den. It's a party. It's
Yeah,
and
that
I'm
was
just
funny.
like, I know what you mean. Not to say I don't love Renee, because I seriously do. We all love Renee here.
Yeah.
She's an OG. We're obsessed. But I kind of... except for the fact that Natalie put her foot in a door that was not meant for her, I was in agreement with Natalie.
I think Natalie, for being a new blood and somebody, younger, a little bit younger than Renee, I mean, she definitely stood her ground and she turned the tables.
Had the upper hand.
She did. So Renee started the situation, the conversation by, you know what? You are no longer going to be a part of Mob Candy. And she's like, well, do you know what? I was not going to be a Mob Candy the second you hit me. So
Which was completely valid.
it was totally valid. And when that happened, it looked like that Renee was, Renee knew that what she did in that situation was not right. So she just sat there and waited. And Natalie did turn around and say, I was hurt, and it wasn't a matter of me feeling, not like I don't like you, but I was genuinely hurt and felt that you were being disloyal to me.
Right, but Natalie's immaturity was shown when she took it a step too far.
yeah. Well,
So
yes.
you're correct in saying that. I like that Renee was like, Natalie says, I wasn't going to do this once you laid a hand on me, and Renee doesn't say I did. She says right, and then Natalie says, I was hurt by you, and Renee's like right. And I know Renee wanted to bash her face in at that moment, but she was holding herself
She was
back,
being
and it
mature.
wasn't until Natalie's like, and what you did to Alicia,
Oh my
honey.
And I felt like up until that point, I actually thought that they were going to resolve things.
Me
because
too.
when Natalie was saying her piece about being hurt, Renee was listening. Renee was being responsive. Renee was saying, okay, I have an explanation and I have an apology.
Yeah, she wasn't fighting back.
She wasn't
Right.
fighting. And so
Exactly.
we saw that, and I'm like, okay, good. These women are going to resolve it. They're going to be amicable now, and we're going to be able to move on.
And I said I would like to be your friend. Renee doesn't say that to
no,
anybody.
she
right?
doesn't. And for Renee, like you said, the OG, to stand back and say, okay, I'm going to apologize. And then for Natalie to then with the whole, how you're disloyal. You're not only are you disloyal to me, but you're disloyal to Alicia. I'm like, oh my God.
I hate when people do that.
I hate it when people do it too.
Especially to me personally, you know.
It's like a dirty way to fight. It's like you're not one-on-one with another. And like Renee said later on in the episode, and I love this, she's like, sit down 101.
I wrote that down.
Yes,
yeah.
I love that. Natalie completely did not abide by the rules of sit down 101.
Right.
You sit down, you throw everything on the table, you move on. You don't rehash things from the past
Bring other people
that are completely unrelated to the situation.
Right. It was almost like Alicia and Natalie were teaming up against Renee, and Alicia wasn't even there, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, I think that has to do with the fact that, as we're saying, she's younger than Renee. She doesn't have as much experience in life or in the mob world. And Renee knows the rules of the game, and Natalie doesn't quite yet. And I do feel bad because, you know, sometimes when you're talking, this has happened to me before. I'm talking, and I feel like I have the upper hand, I have the power, and I'm like, yeah. And then I'll throw something in, and all of a sudden, my whole argument crumbles because it's like I just took it one step too far, and it's like, ooh, what? You go home and you kick yourself, and you're like, I was there. Why didn't I just stop right there? You know? She's like, I want to be your friend. Why didn't I just say, yes, that's what I want. I'm so glad. Let's work past this. Like, prove your loyalty to me. I'm going to do the same to you. But instead, Alicia's name comes up, and we knew the second it came up. I mean, there's no fooling us. We've watched this show for seasons now. We knew exactly where it was going, and I don't blame Renee at that point.
Well, I don't blame her either, because if Natalie really wanted to be amicable with Renee and make amends and have the relationship move on, why would she do that?
I don't think she does.
I don't think she does.
She cares and wants to have a friendship with Renee. I think she's just, I mean, I didn't think they were going to solve it the whole way through while they were talking, because Natalie was just, every time Renee would say yes, Natalie just kept digging and digging. She didn't, I felt like she kind of wanted Renee to just be like, okay, done.
Okay. And I don't know if this is giving Natalie too much credit, but in a way I feel like that her continuing to have this fight with Renee makes her relevant to the show.
Right.
And so for Natalie to say, I'm a badass, I came in and Renee apologized to me. And Renee, you know, listened to me. And I almost feel like in a way she's trying to prove herself. Yeah. And so much so that her relevance to the show is still there.
That's a really good point, and I absolutely agree with you. And I don't know, I also just feel like the new blood is so temporary. That's the name of the season. They're like, are we going to get a second season on this show? Are we, you know, who am I? And it's really interesting because later on we hear, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, but we hear Renee with Big Ange, and she says, Natalie, who are you? Yeah. Who the F are you?
Well, everyone says that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I kind of agree. But that's one thing that I didn't like that Natalie actually did. She said, listen, I was doing Mob Candy as a favor to you.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, I get that she said you never paid me. That's one thing. But Natalie, before the show, who are you? Who are you without Mob Candy? Who are you without Mob Wives? Who are you?
And it sounds like from what Renee is saying, it was probably Renee's decision to bring Natalie onto the show because, you know, her sister is executive producer and all that. So if anything, Natalie should be kind of bowing down to Renee.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, but if she did that,
I know, then she wouldn't. No one would like her, and she wouldn't.
Right.
No one would respect her. So in a way, she's kind of building up her character on the show.
It's a catch-22 because if you come into this show, you have to prove yourself. But once you're that bad bitch, then everybody wants to fight you. But if you're not the bad bitch, then nobody cares about you. So
well, it sounds like the only one that dislikes Natalie at this point is Renee. It sounds like she gets along well with the other girls.
True.
The other girls are, and now and we'll talk about this later, but Renee's a little bit distancing herself and ostracizing herself from the group.
And even Drita mentioned, she said something about me and Big Ange and then the girls. She called Natalie and Alicia the girls. It's like they're part of the group now, and I find it kind of weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I do too, and especially because, you know, she does say there's not many people that can relate to our situation. I get that is a bonding moment, but we know that Big Ange and Drita didn't even know Alicia and Natalie before this season. So it's hard to really invest in a relationship that we know is so new and that everybody's fighting for. And I'm like, if this wasn't a TV show, wouldn't you all just go your separate ways?
Right. Yeah.
Wouldn't Drita and Big Ange just be like, we don't even care, whatever? Like,
It seems forced.
yeah, it is. It's a little forced.
Yeah.
The show is incredible, but this
Yeah.
is a little
This-
bit of forced friendship.
And it's and a lot of it stems with Natalie being a cast member. Like I'm not that convinced of her as a cast member, and this is part of the reason why. Because her situations and her storylines they just seem a little forced to me. It's like, why should Renee give a crap about Natalie? Really, why should she? She's a lot bigger fish to fry.
It's a nuisance. She's like, oh, it's a nuisance, and the only reason it's a nuisance is because they're filming together.
Yeah,
If they weren't
exactly.
filming, it wouldn't be a nuisance because
Would
she would
she
never see
care?
her because they don't
Yeah.
even live in the same state. Like,
I know. So, okay. Now, moving on from that, a little bit of a separate storyline. We see Renee go to her attorney, and Renee states that she's scared about, and she always references the father to her son.
Yeah.
That's always how she references.
yeah, it is.
And
I didn't even know his name was Hector or
Yes,
until
yeah,
last
yeah.
week. Like Junior sometimes, but father to my son.
father to my son. Not even her ex. So father to her son, scared that he's going to come out of jail and God knows what. So she talks to the attorney, and the attorney suggests that she gets a stay away order.
Right.
Basically saying that he has to stay away. He can't contact her. He can't
It's like restraining order of
mail
sorts.
her. And Renee's response was interesting in that
Really interesting.
yeah, and that she's saying, well, I can't. And the attorney's like, you're coming to me telling me you're scared. And she's like, you don't understand, Miss Attorney. This goes way deeper than that.
Yeah, she felt like she was ratting almost. Like, it's crazy to me, and honestly, I wish that Mob Wives would spend more time on this storyline because it seems so real and so moving, and you know, this is really what the heart of the show is about what you can and cannot do as a mob wife and what that world entails and what the rules are. And one of the rules is no matter what somebody does to you, whether they kill somebody you love, whether they hurt you, whether they rape you, it doesn't matter. You don't rat. And you deal with it yourself. And that to me is such a crazy concept because it's so foreign from my life. You know, to me, if something bad happens, you call the police.
And who would
Because I wouldn't even know what to do. Like,
I know, and who would be upset at her for making this stay away order?
yeah,
because
but did you see Nicole's
her-
face when she said that? Nicole was kind of like,
Oh, her friend?
yeah, Nicole, the crazy blonde hair friend.
Yes, yes.
When she was like, I went to the attorney today. I mean, maybe it was editing, but they looked at Nicole's face, and Nicole was like,
But
and I would have been like, if I'm Renee's friend, I'm saying, damn straight you went to the attorney today.
because what family Junior turned in Renee's father? So what family member would be upset at Renee for protecting herself?
They would say, why don't you come to us and we'll kill him. We will whack him for
Yeah.
you. You know, we don't want the police snooping around our business, looking into our lives, making sure we want to kill him and get him out or beat him into a pulp until he gets the picture. You know, they don't want the cops around their scene because then they're all going to get caught and they're all going to go down. It's just so foreign, and that's the part of the show that intrigues us. I can't speak for all of us, but I think all of us.
Yeah,
you know?
intrigues us as viewers.
Yeah,
for
as
sure.
viewers, it's like such a crazy lifestyle that I can't even imagine. I feel so bad for Renee in this moment because she's so torn, and we can see that. She's scared, crapless, but she doesn't want to do something that offends her family, you know?
But what other option does she have? I mean, why did she
like
go to the attorney? Because
Roxy said, go to her family and maybe they'll scare him.
Even though she says, honestly, we've both spoken to her. She says she's scared. She says she hates him more than anything. But you guys know when you hate somebody that's your ex,
There's still
it's really
feelings
close
there.
to love.
Yeah.
Hate is so
It's a
close to
fine
love.
line between love and hate.
You might want somebody to die, but you don't want them to die.
But yeah.
You know, like it's really confusing and complicated. And again, it is the father of her son. So I feel her pickle here.
yeah.
Oh my God, if she was listening to that, she would just say, my pickle? Like, what? It
She's
just
in a
shows
little
how
bit of a
far-
pickle.
Yeah,
That's
shows how
what she
far I am
is.
from this world sometimes.
So-
but I do feel for her.
Yeah.
I
I think
feel.
we all do.
And
It's scary.
I thought it was interesting because, I mean, Nicole said, have you spoken to any of the girls about it? And she was like, no, I can't speak to Drita and Big Ange about it. But first she said because she's so close with the Philly girls, she was basically saying she doesn't really trust them.
Right.
But then she said because they haven't been beat, they don't understand. And I was like, yeah. You know? Like
Well,
when,
Alicia's kind of
like-
in a pickle herself.
yeah, but when no one can truly, even have, like Nicole, no one can truly, when you've been beaten by this person, he's been a rat, no one knows what he's capable of apart from you. Mm-hmm. Wow. Like
nobody takes it as seriously as you do because they haven't felt it, they've heard it, and they can sympathize, but they can't empathize.
They can't. Yeah, no one knows truly, and I mean, I think she needs to get a restraining order and get that.
We all
because
do,
it's, yeah,
but
we'll
like
let
Roxy
even work.
said, we're
but
not
it's
in that
true.
lifestyle.
Yeah,
the fact that
it's
she's
true.
even bringing that up, that it's something she doesn't want to do, means it's a huge part of her culture and who she is as a person.
On top of that, we don't know. Maybe he's the kind of person, if she gets a restraining order, he's like, oh, that's the last straw, and then he goes and kills her or something,
and that's kind of what the lawyer said, isn't it? Well, if she stays quiet, that's just going to make him more mad.
Right.
What do you think about the fact, though, that her being such a public figure at this point, I would think it'd be a little more difficult for him to actually do anything to her.
I think that
away
probably
with
is
it.
something that's comforting to her. Like, I couldn't just disappear and have nobody notice, you know? But at the same time,
not even not have nobody notice. We all follow the story. He would be the first one that, they would suspect of harming her.
Right, but at the same time, we all think of her as a celebrity, and I'm sure she, somewhere in her head, does, but when it comes to stuff that's real in her life, she's not sitting there thinking, oh, well, I'm famous, so it doesn't matter. She's thinking, like, this is me, this is my life,
Yeah.
So there's no way in hell this is an act for the camera. Woman is scared crapless. But I do know what you mean. Logically speaking, us sitting here at this table, if something would happen to her, he would go back to jail because we all know. Anybody who watches the show knows. I feel like this show does give her a safety net a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I think so too. Okay, so next we see there's a luncheon that Drita plans with all the women, and Drita's wanting to get everybody together to clear the air so that all the women get along and they can move on with themselves. So she plans this luncheon. It's at Le Cirque. It's a nice restaurant, and all the women show up.
One that you can't say beep beep or beep beep beep.
You got to be classy and dress
Beautiful
nice.
and classy.
And the women all did.
And they did look nice.
They look nice. They all show up except for Renee. And
How much of this is dick in the soup?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What do you mean by that?
Meaning that it was
so exciting.
Yes, you're new to the show.
This is a Kevin Undergaro saying. Dick in the soup is when the producers put their dick in the soup. They change what's going on in the story. They are like, Renee, it's okay if you don't come. Or do we think that Renee actually was like, F this, I'm not showing up?
I think Renee was F this, I don't show up. Because I think they would get better show if Renee actually showed up.
I think it's the producers.
I'm torn.
You're always torn. You gotta make a stance, Roxy.
Am I wishy-washy? Oh, no.
Just the last 15 minutes you've been. No.
Usually I'm
No,
strong.
you're pretty. I know you're strong. But I think it would have been better for her to show up. There'd be more drama. There'd be more excitement. Now that has to get delayed.
But exactly, now the drama's next week.
Yeah.
Now they have another episode.
I don't know. I think that
think it's
maybe
Renee.
I think maybe she initiated, listen, I don't want to come, and they weren't like, no, you have to. Because really, if they say you have to be here at this time or we're not paying you, contractually, if they say you have to do this, then she kind of does. But I think it was probably a mutual decision of some sort. But I don't know. Everything seems so drawn out. I do think that whether it's dick in the soup or it's just these people who've been on the show long enough know what gets them ratings, I think Renee, if she knew she was eventually going to meet with all of them, then she would have just done it.
I think part of it has to do with her recovery. And she's been absent
Good point.
in multiple different things. She didn't go to Natalie's party. She, in that dinner conversation with her and Natalie, she gets up and walks away. She doesn't show up to this lunch. I think part of it might be she knows that if she gets herself down in that downward spiral with these women, she might go down another road. And so her recovery, in a way, I mean, we talk about the dick in the soup, but don't forget the dick in the soup in this case is her sister. So
Yeah, that's true.
They've got things going on that we don't know about, and they're talking and figuring stuff out. Maybe they decide, you know what? This season with your recovery, you can take a step back. You're in it, but you can take a step back and not have to show up to everything.
Was it not the most dickwad move that Nicole, her friend, had that massive drink? Like Renee,
we were talking about that. Like,
you point
what?
out the drink, and I'm like, isn't
What is
Renee in
she
recovery?
drinking?
It was a drink for two. that she was drinking herself.
But it looked like they were at like some little cafe, right? That you order a cappuccino. But she has
Not
this
a fancy
big green
drink.
Vegas drink that you carry when you're walking around the strip.
Or it was like a fishbowl that you share with everybody at the table,
Yeah.
you know? Like
At Sharky's, if any of you guys
just
are
would like
local
to-
here in LA.
I would like to think, it's one thing to be at a club having drinks with a friend who's recovery because they're putting themselves in that position, but to be casually with your friend who's just
the
starting
two
to
of
recover,
you.
just the two of you, and like, you're getting wasted, girl. I was just like, oh no.
We all
And
thought that
it's
was
not a
weird.
bar.
No.
It was like a cafe.
It was like, and it was lunch. It wasn't like nighttime. It was like, let's go for drinks. You can be sober and I'll drink. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. No, they were having lunch.
Yeah.
And she had this big green drink. Maybe it was non-alcoholic. Maybe we'll give her the benefit of the doubt.
You think that somebody would drink a fishbowl
I
of
don't.
non-alcoholic?
I don't.
Like, babe, if I'm taking down 2,000 calories, there better be some alcohol in there.
I agree. Okay, so let's go back to the lunch. So Renee doesn't show up, and then all the women get upset, especially Drita. So Drita feels that she's trying to be the peacemaker here. She's trying to be the middleman, and Renee, in Drita's eyes, kind of slaps Drita in the face by not showing up, and doesn't even contact Drita. She contacts Big Ange, and at the last minute.
Right.
And in my opinion, in looking at this, I do feel that Renee is further somewhat ostracizing herself from the group.
Yeah,
I mean, she
absolutely.
says later on, Renee says, I brought all these women together and now I feel like I am the outsider. Well, I think it's a little bit Renee.
Yeah, when you
creating
keep
that.
when you keep not going to these things, and when everyone's together and you're not there, you're going to be the one that's left out. Like, that's just how it works. If you just don't hang out with these people, this is the second thing that they've all been to, and she's been invited to, but she's the one that's chosen not to go.
As much as I love Renee, when I was younger, I used to go talk to my mom and say, I hate all my friends. They're all so mean, and I hate them. And she would say, why? And I would say, because they all are mad at me. And sometimes you have to realize when everybody else is mad at you that maybe you're the problem, and it's not everybody else. And I just feel like, Renee, fine, you're fighting with Alicia. Fine, you're fighting with Natalie. But don't you dare get Big Ange and Drita on your bad side, because then guess what? It's you.
Yeah.
It's not Natalie. It's not Alicia. It's you. You're the problem. And I just think that, like you're saying, if you're going to cancel, first of all, don't agree to go to lunch. But if you're going to agree and then you realize you really don't want to do it and you're going to cancel, please have the decency to call Drita the person who's planning the lunch. And that's just my opinion. And she's saying, Renee's saying, I feel like they're leaving me out. No, nobody isn't. It's like you're saying, you're ostracizing yourself. You are ostracizing yourself. It's you. And I don't think Renee at this point is very good at looking in the mirror and saying, holy shit, this is me.
And she's sending a very strong message to all women by not showing up.
Yeah.
She's telling Alicia and Natalie that she doesn't really care about mending things with the two of them. And she's telling Drita and Big Ange that the concept of having everybody be harmonious for the sake of each other is just not important. She doesn't care about that.
What I find that weird, though, now that when Big Ange, when they were getting manicures, and Renee's saying what happened at the dinner, and Big Ange is like, well, who is Natalie? But then Big Ange is buddy-buddy with Natalie. Now I'm just finding it kind of strange that whenever Renee is not there, everything's all rosy. And Big Ange and Drita are playing the middleman completely, though, and they're not taking anyone's side. Now I feel like, okay, maybe it is time to kind of stop playing both fields. Like, you need to go
sides
one
of the
way or
fence.
the
Yeah,
other.
kind of like what Erika just said to me. Pick a side. Roxy, pick a side,
Pick a side.
That's what we're
And stick
saying.
to it.
No, and I do think that...
Well, here's the thing that I feel with Drita and Big Ange is that they have a loyalty to Renee. However, in this situation, they don't necessarily feel that what Renee did was right. And so they can't go on Natalie's side because they have that loyalty to Renee. So in a way, they're playing it safe by being in the middle. However, say Natalie actually did something wrong, I think they would take a side and take Renee's side.
Right, but if they had been a fly on the wall at the dinner that Natalie and Renee had, I think they would have been fine with Renee. I think they would have said,
Yep,
you did
I
what
agree.
you could.
Yeah,
and
I
then,
do too.
And so honestly, I don't think Big Ange is flip-flopping. I think, like you're saying, she couldn't take Natalie's side, so she was in the middle. And then once Renee says, listen, I apologize, but she really didn't accept it, then Big Ange is like, well, okay, then that's that.
And once Big Ange learned of what actually happened at the dinner, she even said, like, why bring up Alicia? Why are you going to bring up Alicia? That makes absolutely no sense. And
Yeah.
that was a stupid move.
Yeah.
So
I think it's interesting that tonight Natalie recognizes Big Ange as the Dom because it's like if Big Ange speaks, yes. Okay, like, and so it is done.
the truth has been spoken.
Yeah, because when she has an opinion, like you better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Big Ange, we see a little bit about her personal life. She's got a lot going on. She's got 2 of her kids are engaged to be married.
I feel like that. This is a weird comment, but I feel like it's a little rude to have both of the kids engaged.
At the same
if
time.
my brother proposed to somebody, I would hope that the guy that I was dating wouldn't propose to me that week. You know?
Well, I have a friend, and she and her sister, and they're both engaged right now.
I guess it's not that weird. I know. I don't even know why I said that or why I feel it's just weird. Like I would want to be so excited for him, and then at a separate time be so excited for me.
Yeah,
like,
and everything's come at once. There's now 2 weddings, and it seemed like her daughter got engaged, so the guy proposed, but then her son proposed. So it was kind of like
he had gotten the girl pregnant.
But
so
yeah,
and I feel like that's the
that.
only reason he's proposing right now. I'm not trying to blow up his spot, but
way to put him on blast, Roxy.
I'm really sorry. Big Ange thought that it was romantic the way he proposed. He was like, yeah, I thought it was really smart. I just started screaming at her, so she was like all pissed and wouldn't expect it. And then I just got down on one knee.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that's the most romantic. I mean, I would probably be like, I'm sorry, what? No. Like,
can we go back to when we were fighting?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
If that's
Maybe
not
that's
symbolic of their relationship, I don't know what will be.
Yeah.
But I think in kind of the mob, I feel like that kind of is romantic because
the
I feel like
Italians are very
relationships always fight.
passionate.
But are Gabby and Raquel gonna go like dress shopping together?
I don't know. Are they friends?
I don't know.
Maybe they probably hate each other for all we know.
Where is Raquel? Come on the show.
Yeah.
We've never seen her.
Okay.
And they have to do a baby shower and christening. And it's like Big Ange has a lot on right now.
She does.
And Big Ange wants her own baby. I'm like, yo, steal AJ's baby.
Oh my God.
I'm just kidding. Oh my God, please don't hate me at home. They're like, no, don't steal anybody's baby.
Well, I mean, maybe Big Ann should just, shut the door on that part of her life and
hope
just
so.
enjoy
grandma.
being a grandma.
Yeah. I mean, you can have just as big of a role in somebody's life as a grandma.
Maybe she just
Especially-
wants to have a kid with Neil. Maybe that's what it is.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. I don't know.
Time to cut that off.
I think so too.
I can't say because we're not her, and maybe she is going through
But
something.
she's already had kids. I can understand she's never had kids before, but she has kids.
I don't really understand it,
No,
but
I don't think any of us do.
I don't
Whatever
know.
floats your boat.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay, so we see then later on Renee and Drita have a sit down. And Drita confronts Renee about not showing up to the luncheon that she planned.
Right.
Because Drita gets herself offended the fact that Renee doesn't show up. And now Drita wants an explanation from Renee as to why she didn't show up. So Renee pretty much says, I didn't want to show up.
Yeah.
I had that dinner with Natalie. My blood was boiling. I was going to snap her neck, and I didn't want to be there.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
I was glad that Drita wasn't like, what the hell? You know, it's kind of just at this point, over it, been there, done. All right, okay.
I do like, though, the fact that Drita said, and she acknowledged the fact that, Renee, you were the one to bring all these women together. You're the one who brought Natalie and Alicia to our group. So you not being a part of our group, it doesn't seem right, and it doesn't sit well with me. And I like that she said that. Basically kind of affirming what Renee was hoping not to happen, the fact that, you guys are all friends without me, and Drita's like, we don't want to be friends without
Yeah,
you.
right.
You're not showing up, and it doesn't seem right. I want you to be a part of this group.
I mean, absolutely. And maybe you guys at home know this a little more, so I'm definitely reaching out to you. I know that Renee and the producers are almost one and the same because it is her sister that's an executive producer, but I am curious what was the origin of Alicia and Natalie? Was Renee the one who wanted to pull them in, or was it the producers? Because it's different if the producers wanted to pull her in and Renee was the only one who knew her, so she introduced them to Drita and Ange, as opposed to her being like, oh, these 2 girls will be perfect, let me bring them in. So if you guys know how these 2 new bloods got on the show.
Well, it sounded like Renee at the beginning didn't know Natalie at all, because remember how Alicia introduced
Alicia brought-
Natalie?
yeah.
We know that because of Eddie. She
Yes.
did know Alicia, but I don't know whether
Sounded like
she
she
was...
didn't even like
And I think
Alicia
Alicia's
from
always
before.
kind of, I feel like Alicia's always been known because of the whole Renee, what was it? Renee,
Eddie.
no, Karen's
Oh,
dad,
the ball.
yes.
because I feel like Alicia's always been kind of in there.
Yeah,
But
she
no
has.
one's really known.
She's been part of the group.
Yeah.
We just haven't known her.
Yeah.
And now we do.
Yep. So then the episode ends with them trying to have another dinner where Renee actually shows up
At Drita's.
at Drita's house. So Drita's hosting another dinner. She's cooking. She's like, I'm just going to do it at the house. So she cooks a nice meal. The women are all impressed by her cooking and all that. And of course, everyone's there. And Renee is late. And Roxy, you felt that was
I do
a
not think
producer's
that Renee.
hand.
You're right. I do not think that Renee is disrespectful enough that she was so late that these women actually almost finished dinner without her. Because at that point, you're talking with these women, the wine and the whatever. You're talking almost an hour and a half late at that point, at least. There's no way. Either she said she couldn't make it until later, and they all knew it, and then had to say that in their direct to cameras, or the producers dick in the soup here, and they said your call time's 7, the rest of you ladies is 6.
I agree with you in this case. I do agree that was a producer's call and that she showed up when she was supposed to show up, and it just built up the drama with the other women.
There's no
and
way.
it gives the women time to drink. It gives them time to get liquored up,
Yeah, Renee's not trying
which
to
is going to
disrespect
add to the
Drita
fight.
right now.
No.
Then I just think it's kind of a weird situation that Renee is kind of the odd one out again.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? She's kind of being pushed out, whether it's the producers or whatever's happened, but she's the odd one out.
It's
That
interesting.
She hasn't had dinner with them. She hasn't eaten with them. She hasn't had a drink before. Well,
She can't.
yeah.
right.
But, you know?
Yeah, we've seen it before on the show, but even when it was like Carla, I always feel like people have somebody. Renee right now doesn't have her somebody. Her somebody is Nicole, who I don't know, and I don't
Yeah,
care.
we don't.
So I do feel bad for her, but like we were saying, she's kind of putting it upon herself. So how bad can you really feel?
And I still think she has Drita and Big Ange. She
Right.
still has the two of them.
Yeah,
She will. I mean, she has them. So that's not going to change.
absolutely.
But of course, typical VH1 show fashion, they take the most juicy parts of that dinner and they roll them into next week's episode. So we didn't get to see the whole fight.
Right.
But what are your guys' predictions with that?
Before that, though, I
Okay,
just want to say,
yes.
because we are missing one thing from the earlier on in the episode that
What
I
is
just
it?
wanted to quickly mention was about Drita and Lee and the phone call that they had together.
Good, thank
and there was
you.
just this moment that we all kind of were like, huh? About when Drita says, he's more my friend than my husband, and I like it like I'm sorry, I really, really don't understand what that means. I do understand when you have a boyfriend and you say, he's not only my boyfriend, but he's my best
my
friend.
friend.
And that's sweet. But he's more my friend than my husband. Like you said, Erika, does that mean you're not having sex?
Which
Or-
it doesn't sound like because
yeah, it sounds like
Drita's-
they're having crazy sex.
Yes.
So what do you mean he's more your friend than your husband? As your friend.
Maybe they don't
he's-
have sex that often.
No, I don't think that's what it has to do with. I think she
I
was
don't know.
either she misspoke.
I think she was
or-
trying to sound cute.
Yeah, I don't know. This was just a weird moment. And at least last week we talked about how she never says anything good about him. At least this week she was trying to say something good about him, but it just
Yeah.
came off kind of weird,
Well,
man.
Drita overall seems like she's in a really good place.
That's true.
Compared to seasons past where Lee was in jail and she was all over the place. And that's when we saw her act out more with the other women.
Right.
So Drita definitely seems like herself and who she is. She's centered. She's in a good place. She's happy. Like she said, she can't come up with lyrics because she's so happy. And we see that. And
Hearts are red.
yes, hearts are, what do I rap about? Hearts being red, me being in love. So, and I'm happy for Drita. I mean, we all love Drita. And regardless of their relationship and how we might see it as outsiders as being a little bit odd because of the way he talks to her or whatever, at the end of the day, she's happy. And
That's very true.
and so that's
All I can say is I just would not want my husband to be more of a friend than a husband.
No.
So whether I'm taking that the wrong way or not, I can just say I definitely don't think that is what would cause happiness for me.
I think she misspoke. I think it's more like he's my husband and my best friend.
And she said, I'm a happy dick on a rainbow.
I know.
That's
She
like when
uses
she
that
said
word a lot.
Yeah, she does. It's like when she said that she was so happy she wanted to drive her car through an entire wall.
Like what?
Sometimes she just said, yeah, her analogies are real off.
I know.
Not that we can judge because we had
Well,
some
yeah.
off ones
Mine
tonight
was
too,
kind of-
but just like, Drita, you are the cutest thing ever. I frickin' love you, doll. But
Everyone
what?
loves her.
But,
I love Drita.
What does that
I think
mean?
she's awesome.
And gorgeous.
All right, so yeah, she's gorgeous. Okay, so predictions for
Your
next week.
AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Oh.
I predict that Alicia will be in another fabulous outfit because talk
We
about
love
gorgeous.
her
Her
fashion.
style is so
I
cool.
love her style.
Absolutely.
Well, she owns a store, so she doesn't have an excuse.
Right? Yeah, that is true. I predict that the 5 of them, there is going to be some sort of resolution because there's so much buildup right now that I do think that they'll at least be trying to be civil with one another. There's going to be a blow up before they're civil, but I do think that we're walking away from this trying to be. How long that lasts, who freaking knows?
Well, what we saw, something happens with Natalie. We can gather that from what they saw. But Alicia's in
Oh,
that.
yeah, I'm forgetting that.
Alicia's in that conversation, so maybe
Right.
Renee and Alicia resolve something. So, but obviously Natalie's hit real low and said something.
Yeah, I don't feel like the situation between Renee and Natalie are going to get resolved because honestly, I don't think Natalie cares about resolving it with Renee, and I don't think Renee cares about resolving it with Natalie. So,
And I was more talking about with Alicia, but the Natalie thing, yeah, we see that later.
because Renee
Renee's
has
talking
more.
crap.
Yeah, Renee has. When it comes to Alicia, I feel like Renee has more at stake. There's more there because there's that history with
Eddie.
So it's worth it more to her to resolve things or at least make things amicable.
Yeah,
I don't
for
think she
sure.
gives a crap about Natalie.
Yeah,
I don't either.
I don't either, especially now that she's not Mob Candy. Who effing cares?
who cares?
I will say something I'm excited to see is Drita and her store because she's opening the second store.
Looks like she got the
And-
money somehow.
Yeah,
Yeah, because she lost
she
it all
won
in
Vegas.
Vegas.
gamble it away. I think that was a little bit of they were dramatizing that at
Yeah.
the time. Like, what is $6,000 to her? I don't really
Probably not a
think.
lot,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, in terms of opening a store, probably not that much.
Right.
I love this. I love seeing her shop. I love seeing these women have their different business things. Her wrapping, the clothing line, shoe lines, whatever it is. Love that. So excited to see. And it seems like she walked in and was not happy that the place was still closed. So
Yeah, we'll see.
laying the law down.
Lady boss. All right, guys. Well, that's our show for you this week. Don't forget to go onto iTunes, rate us, comment. We love your comments. We love your comments on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, like the video below, comment, say what you like, what you don't like. We're here for you guys.
And we
the-
read
the
them all.
watchers.
We really do.
We do. We do. So, all right. Where can we find you, ladies?
At Shop Broadbent on Twitter and Instagram.
At Roxy Striar.
And I'm your host, Erika Garcia Rojas, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at IamEGR. See you next week. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later, bitches!
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.